ChatGPT can answer any question that you ask it, unless the answer is like after 2021. A stable diffusion can do any kind of prompt that you can think of, but in the dating world, I still have to swipe left and right, irrelevant guys like a caveman, and that's just sort of asking for like revolution, right? So where is my single button solution?
Welcome to the Startup Huddle. I'm your host, Josef Maruščák, and I'm excited to introduce you to the current and upcoming leaders of the startup tech world. We'll discuss digital products and key takeaways for life and professional growth. So grab a coffee and let's huddle up.
Welcome everyone to another episode after a short break, summer break. Today we have a very interesting guest here. His name is Milan Kovacic. He's the CEO of Cosmic Latte. And we'll be talking a lot about dating and especially a lot about LGBTQ plus dating. So a very specific topic. Welcome Milan, and thanks very much for joining us.
Hi. Lovely to see you at least this way virtually. It's a pleasure to be here. What would you like to talk about?
So Milan, you have a very interesting background. You sort of tried a little bit of everything. Started at the university with tech background, then continued into management consulting, 2 different companies, and ended up being the CEO of a dating app. In the meantime, also doing a course in Oxford. So tell us a little bit more about your background and how did you get here?
So, I will give you a top-down answer and then a bit more elaborative answer. So in terms of how did I get here, I think as a lot of other entrepreneurs tell you, this is just a combination of luck and boldness. And that's pretty much my part of the story. And the more elaborative answer, usually if I give a personal pitch, I talk about 3 things. I talk about the tech part, the business part, and the personal part. So really quickly, the tech part. So I studied kind of hardcore mathematics. I'm a very nerdy person. Went through Prague to Amsterdam and eventually ended up on Oxford studying artificial intelligence. And from the business part, I coded for like a year and then figured out that I actually hate it because it turns out there's not this like crazy elaborative way how you explore the algorithms and figure out how they can be more efficient. It's a manual labor and Googling Stack Overflow, which was something different than I expected. So after a year, I figured out that I don't want to be a manual worker and jumped into consulting and did a lot in PricewaterhouseCoopers and McKinsey and eventually got an offer that I didn't want to refuse to be a CEO of a dating application. And that's how I became a leader. And I think a big differentiation when I was getting the job and now that I'm executing it is actually the IT background. It's incredibly helpful to have the ability to like sit down with a developer and tell him, look, so what are we solving? Let's like look in the code, let's do this together. And then the third branch, real quickly, the personal stuff. So I'm not just a CV, I'm also like a live human being. I tend to do a lot of sports. I run marathon this year, which I do to like stay sane because in a high performance environment, I would argue that you have to have a certain thing to blow up steam. And I'm quite busy in like a spiritual and mental growth. So in a month, I'm going to Buddhist monastery to India to meditate. And I did that multiple times before. And I'm very busy in terms of like mental growth and spiritual growth. And I think it also helps a lot in a business environment. That's my 100-second pitch, maybe more.
I think that opens a lot of questions, and maybe we'll do a follow-up podcast just about your spiritual journey or sport journey. But let's focus now on your current job and on the tech and dating. So tell us a little bit more about the market. What do you know about the market? What's interesting about the market? I mean, you've been there for quite some time, and you also decided to enter the market. So give us the background.
Yeah, of course. Business first. First business, and then we discuss spirituality. So look, I'm gonna like spare you to talk about like numbers, growth indexes, whatever else, because that's not very sexy. What I can tell you is a little bit more from like the user perspective. I think I can spin just 3 numbers. Number 1, roughly half, or probably slightly more since COVID, of new relationships are with couples who met online, wildly over-indexing any other way of meeting people out there. So it used to be like mutual friends, used to be like the main way how we met partners. And then, I mean, the graph just like changed and now it's online.
That's
Um,
crazy. Just
yeah,
for, I mean, when did this happen? So is there like a growing trend in that regard? Or
yeah, it is growing like crazy. I remember the statistics from 2017. There it was like 40-ish%. By the way, context, we are talking Western Hemisphere, right? Like this is not, we're excluding India, Brazil, whatever else. We are talking like Western cultures regarding the numbers. And in 2017, it was like 40-ish. And then COVID happened, right? Which supercharged this whole growth. And then if you look at young people, roughly half of the population of young people is like right now using dating apps, which I mean, if you like subtract the people who have relationships, it's virtually everyone. And if you look into the LGBTQ sector, 55% of all the LGBTQ people are using dating applications. This is including the people in like boomers generation, right? So everyone in gay world is using dating apps. Of course, I mean the discrepancy between like the young people in LGBTQ, which is virtually everyone, and roughly half of the young people in straight world, is the fact that I mean gay people have difficulties meeting at work or at school because you don't have gay written on your forehead, or I don't. Whereas straight people can just basically assume that the opposite gender, I mean, and they will be right in like roughly 90 to 80% that the opposite gender is interested in their gender. So yeah, but I mean, the so what from this is that the online dating has insane power, and similar to social media, this is unregulated. But if you really think about it, if Tinder releases a new feature that significantly enhances the efficiency of us meeting our future spouses, you will see the effect of this new feature on the natality charts of the big nations, right? Because I mean, you get 10% more efficient. Eventually, you get 5-8% more children because more people meet each other. Or if Grindr releases a new feature that promotes like responsible sexual behavior, you might see this on the chart of STDs. So these applications have crazy, crazy power, are largely unregulated, and the market is incredibly influential because it goes straight to one of our like huge society ideals, which is love, partnership, comradeship, means of starting a family, etc. So the market is growing, and it's super powerful and very, very impactful in terms of society.
those are some crazy numbers. I never thought about it this way. And I guess that there'll be even more and more people using dating apps, right? As the population gets older and like especially with the young generation more used to tech.
Depends on the sector. Like, so for instance, the LGBTQ sector is growing like crazy because the LGBTQ population is growing like crazy. I mean, in I'm kind of between the generations of millennials and Gen Z. And in millennials, it used to be 11% or 10%, 10 point something on the US market. Gen Z has self-identified 21. So the sector doubled. So yeah, there is crazy growth. And yeah, I mean, the adoption as the older generation that could possibly be addressed is like moving out of the market, moving out of the spending potential. And the young people who have very good technological adoption are moving in. The market very naturally bubbles. But it's not like it doubles every few years, it grows single digits. But it is a growing market, yes.
So what are most of these providers, and we'll very soon get to your product and what exactly you are doing on that market. But so what is the main focus of the biggest players right now? Which generation? What segment?
Um, so I mean, straight people are a big segment. I think straight people and rich countries, right? So the first world and straight people is the biggest market segment. It has a huge spending potential. And it's actually interesting what's happening there, right? So you had like the first mover advantage by Tinder, who is part of the Match group, and they have Hinge and the 15 apps. Like it's a big group. And then you used to have like a massive, massive market share. And then one of the C levels exited Tinder or exited Match and started her own company, Bumble, which eventually got acquired by Blackstone, and Badu got also acquired by them. And their like aggressive move was that they will have an app that is absolutely optimized for women. And it does, like, if you get a match, the female has to text first, and there's a lot of other features that promote so the female advocacy in dating. And they took a huge part of market share. And one of the reasons is that Tinder started to lose the female users. I think last time I checked, their share was like, for each female user, there is 3 guys, whereas Bumble had significantly more favorable share. And that, of course, poses a problem, right? Because like females get a lot of matches, but a lot of them are irrelevant, and males can't get a match. And that's one of the reasons why Tinder appointed a female CEO to sort of deal with this challenge. But I mean, overall, I think there is still a huge war in the very crowded space of like straight dating. Gay dating is also quite crowded, heavily dominated by Grindr. And then the other datings, like for instance, lesbian space, it's fairly free. Like we are acting in there, and it's like there are strong players, but it's not like as fragmented as straight dating. And then you have a lot of like niche products that are getting addressed or are not addressed yet, right? Like for instance, transgender dating, nobody cracked it yet that I know of. Like there are transgender friendly apps, but there's nothing that would actually be focusing on the needs of these people, and the population is growing like crazy. And then you have all of these like Arab dating, Hindi dating, like these local players that like optimize for the niche, grew quite a lot, and then they got acquired by one of the big groups, which by now own a significant part of the market. Like honestly, the market is consolidating. There is a few players like us that still like manage to be independent, but let's see for how long, because the consolidation is very centric. Like everything, it's more than half of the market is now owned by 3 big players. So I talked a lot. So just to really quickly sum up, straight market is the one that where the war is raging and is still being dominated, and the whole market is slowly consolidating into the hands of a few big players.
And what about, you mentioned also that the biggest war is in the first world countries. So what about like Asia or Africa, some of the countries there? Is the main problem that people do not want to use such technology, or is it mostly access to technology by itself, that simply the ability to own a smartphone is sort of hindered there? Or are there any like very specific patterns in those part of the world why people do not date online?
No, so I think it's unfortunately there is not one size fits all. Like the technological adoption, access to like reliable internet would be probably one in certain regions. Then you have the cultural hindrances, right? Like we see this all the time. Like we are quite big in Asian countries, like Taiwan, for instance. And there, showing your face, it's a risk. Like while in like US countries, the biggest feature that sells by far is so you can see who liked you. This is like the main driver of subscriptions. In Asian countries, a big driver of subscriptions is the ability to hide your face. So like this incognito mode, like disproportionately big, because I mean the culture is a bit less out there, is a bit less accepting, and therefore the usage pattern is different. But I also think that it's not necessarily just demand driven. I think it's also driven by the proposition. So if I'm selecting whether I'm gonna like start my dating app in India, where feasible subscription price is $1, $2, or I'm gonna do it in Canada, where feasible subscription price is 22, I'm really gonna think hard which markets to address. So it's not just like the user patterns are a bit tougher and the access to technology and security and everything else is a bit tough, but it's also that the other markets are significantly more attractive. And this is not just subscription, right? Like if you have second revenue stream of advertisement, or you are selling data insights, which is, we don't do it, but it's very common in our competitors, then the data from US is significantly more valuable, or the data insights from US are significantly more valuable. And also like ads shown to first world country person is 5-10 times more expensive than shown to somebody in India.
Yeah.
That makes sense? Does it answer your question? Okay, good.
Very well, very well. Now, so the market seems to be quite complicated to navigate. Different industries, different geographies, different target personas. Now, where do you sit on that market? What does Cosmic Latte do, and who does it
Yeah.
focus on?
So Cosmic is a portfolio of dating apps. The two main ones, like the crown jewels, are Zoe, which is LGBTQ dating application. So it's basically for non-straight people identifying as women. And then you have Surge, which is GBTQ application. That's again non-straight people identifying as men. If I wanted to be a bit politically incorrect, I would tell you that we have one lesbian and one gay app, but I can't since I'm a politically correct person and a LGBTQ CEO. In terms of like the market distribution for both, the biggest market is US because the spending potential is just so potent that is like really difficult to get any other country. But surprisingly enough, the like second biggest chunk of revenue is coming from rich Asian countries. And actually, I think, for instance, on Zoe or the LGBTQ dating app, if you would add Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, it would be the biggest chunk of revenue. So we are like fairly big in the rich Asian countries, and the rest. So we have more than 50% on Zoe, far more than 50% of revenue. It's coming from first world countries, which is of course favorable market position because you can like charge more. The ads are better priced. And the rest is differentiated between third world countries and sort of Eastern Europe. So we have, I mean, Russia used to be, for instance, really big before the very unfortunate war happened. And we, of course, as everyone else who has any sense of camaraderie, exited the market or exited earning money from the market. We stay there to support the community, but we are not capitalizing there.
Understood. And what is so how do you differ from competition in both those, let's say, different target persona segments? Let's call that.
Yeah. So look, let's start with the GBTQ app. So with Search, with the one that is for people who identify as male. There, the market is super crowded, but it's mostly crowded by apps like Grindr, which, I mean, you can call it dating app, but I mean, come on, it's a hookup app. I mean, if you have people who profile names are Anka XXL, and one of the profile fields is if you are on PrEP, and if you're vaccinated against monkeypox, and if your like preferences are twink, trans, or bear, it's a hookup app. And I'm talking from, a friend told me. No, I'm of course talking from personal experience. I like it is what it is. It's good. Their business model is supreme, and they're a great company. Like they manage, despite serving only 4% segment of the market, they managed to be 8% of the overall dating market. It's super impressive. They're a great company. And the only LGBTQ, by the way, the only LGBTQ publicly traded company in the world. Or any significant. I mean, maybe there are some small ones, but this one actually made it. They ring the bell on the Wall Street last year, I think. And the space is really crowded by companies like these. We are a bit different. So our way of discovery, it's more similar to Tinder. So you need like mutual consent. Hence, it is more focused on dating. And we are sort of betting on the niche in the LGBTQ community, like sure, like significant part of the people just want to have fun, but eventually also want to get a relationship. So we are doing similar thing that Tinder is doing. So we need to have like a mutual match in order to be able to chat, but heavily optimizing it for LGBTQ market, which means it's surreal not to have the ability to send pictures, for instance. If you're on gay dating, it's a very visual community. Tinder doesn't allow it, we do. Also, we allow to send disappearing pictures, so in case you want to send your nudes, they are safe. We have, since it's a very visual community, we have attractiveness score, which helps you to easily access the most desirable user on the platform. We are working on having this thing which is called a dirty code, where you can't really like have publicly published naked pictures because I mean it's against App Store rules. But you can have doodles that show what kind of body hair do you have, what kind of intimacy do you prefer, and as long as you have it as doodles in your profile, it should be all right. So, or like health information regarding are you a prep or not. Are you into kinks? Do you look for open relationship or not? These are fields that are not necessarily part of Tinder, but are super important in gay dating. Because I mean, sure, you are looking for a husband, but it's also relevant if the other person wants to have an open relationship or polyamory or whatever else. So that's search. So still dating, but super optimized on visual gay dating experience. And then on Zoe part is the complete opposite. So it's really, really over-indexed on safety, because big parts of the LGBTQ community is things like unicorn hunting, right? So you're on Tinder, you chat with somebody who you desire, and then it turns out that the person who you desire has a boyfriend and they actually just want to have a threesome. And this happened 5 times, and then you're quite frustrated. So then you exit the generic dating and are looking for alternatives such as Zoe or her or other things that are like exclusively in the LGBTQ space. And then the other part is a lot of people in the lesbian bisexual community are looking for not necessarily for like a hookup or relationship, but they're looking for friendship, like just general looking for with people from the community. And we are optimizing to have features from there, right? So it's not just like matching a person and they're exchanging phone numbers and chatting at WhatsApp. It's more like matching the person, keeping it as a match. And then once you want to go for a coffee, you signal that they want a coffee. And then from the community of the people that you're collecting through mutual matches, you look for people who want to grab a coffee or go to movies because you're new in town and you're looking to hang out. So on one side, still dating, but super optimized for the community. On the other side, dating super optimized for the social features and for safety. So that's the differentiation to the big players.
What is fascinating for me about this is that, how different those products need to be to properly target the target user and to be liked by the target user. And it's crazy to what detail you are going to serve the target user. So how did you go about validation, and how do you do, the product role there? What do you do to validate to understand your target users, to validate, the key assumptions? It's something that we do, like offer as a service in Sudolabs, and it's something that not many companies do properly. Seems like you have done the job properly. So how did you go about it?
So I'm actually really curious about your feedback, because maybe you tell me that we are trash at it. Because this is something that I heavily reimagined when I entered the company a few years ago. So I think there's like multiple layers to this. Number one is this sort of like discovery work stream, which just goes continuously. So me and my now the head of product, we are going around talking to people, studying the recent trends, just going out and discovering what are the newest trends, what are the competitors doing, what do the users want. We show them the application, we like get the feedback, we show them prototypes, get the feedback, and based on this, like on this huge blob of information, we then deliberate and create and then subsequently update continuously product strategy. And these are the like sort of big ideas, right? The search will be incredibly visual and Zoe will be like social features driven. These are one of the like big product bets that we made based on dozens of interviews and hundreds of articles, and right, and we continuously update it. And then from there, we we have like a huge backlog of possible features. And usually when we implement we have a huge backlog of possible features, and we have certain focuses because you can't do everything, right? You can't like monetize, in parallel look for like product differentiation in the market, in parallel boost the retention, and in parallel redesign the swiping card. You can't do everything at once. So we have like certain blocks when we are focusing on certain things. That's sort of like a company strategy. And when we then are in the block, we take the feature from the backlog and we define the absolute smallest thing that is possible to still prove the concept. And this is absolutely crucial. Then we implement it, and I challenge kind of relentless, like, do we actually need this? Is it necessary? Can we drop this down? Or, okay, no, we need this part of the feature because otherwise, like, it's untestable, or otherwise the fundamental purpose will be lost to the user. And then once we have the definition, we implement it. And then it's super, super important. We test everything. Like, there's not a single thing that was released since I entered the company that wasn't A/B tested or at the very least data tested. So if you recolor a button, we look at how many clicks were there before and how many clicks are there now. If it's a bigger feature, for instance, we recently deployed this grid of attractive users on search. We look at how does it influence revenue? How does it influence retention? How does it influence our reviews in App Store? And we like look at it within an A/B test, and then based on the dashboard and the data, we either adapt it because it doesn't work, or we deploy to the population and then like enhance so we get squeeze even more of the benefit for the user. And I think the learning, and the last part is the learning, which is super important. So this whole thing from the A/B test, data test, whatever else, the insights feed back to the discovery. And sometimes it happens that we discover something really important that invalidates the strategy assumptions that we had, and then we have to build a new strategy. But it's all very data driven. And if I had more time and more money and bigger company, big part of this chunk would be automatic. Like the promotion of A/B tests, you can do it automatically. And I think Booking does it. It's just like sort of organically the features that like optimize the KPIs better, it just bubble up and you have nobody who's looking at it. It's just basic competition within like algorithmic space. Does that answer the question? I mean, data driven is
That 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 answers the question. That's music to my ears. Obviously, there are nuances of how to do it in the best possible and efficient way, but the general approach is, I think, something that is definitely very useful and the right approach. I mean, you're data driven and you approach the whole process very iteratively. So it's a continuous iteration based on data and on the discoveries. Very cool.
Yeah, because
And
if you don't do it, if you don't iterate and you just like implement the whole feature, you are wasting money. Because I remember I had so many bets that I was sure are gonna work. Like for instance, we did like repricing, and on one platform we repriced aggressively in third world countries, like went down to like $2 or something, and did crazy numbers. Like the subscription went up 11x and the revenue went up 2.5x, like a huge success. And on the other platform, I was like, okay, we can just do it, right? It's going to work the same. Maybe it's not going to be 11x, it's going to be 6x, but still, it's going to work. But like being very like diligent, I did the A/B test. It didn't work. And I was sure I did the A/B test twice because I was like, no, we fucked up something. And this is not possible. I did it again, and it was so counterintuitive. And it happens a few times a year that I'm sure that something is going to work, and it doesn't. So it's super important to like A/B test because otherwise you release something that is suboptimal. And it's super important to have MVP because if you don't and it then doesn't work, you just burn shitload of money and capacity of the team. That could have been invested into something that you know is going to work because you A/B tested the MVP before. Minimum viable product, by the way, just for the listeners.
yeah, I mean, for sure, like the same is true from our experience. At least half of your ideas are not gonna be true, or they're gonna be true, but they will not have the same impact as you imagined. And that's simply because the world is incredibly complicated, and even though you work in the industry, or you know the industry, or you feel like you are even the target user, it's very hard to understand such a complex thing as a human mind and all the other different aspects, because there's competition as well. There's this incredible amount of parameters that are entering into the equation.
Yeah, definitely. And there is one more thing, and then we can like jump to another topic. But I want to share this one. We have this feature within both the applications that you can get verified because there's a lot of scammers, there's a lot of like fake profiles, and we provide a service which is free that like you post your picture, you take another picture with a gesture, and you verify if it's actually you, and you get a blue badge, right? And we were redesigning the profile screen. And I mean, there was a lot of iterative like sessions with designers, and we tested with users, whatever else. We deployed it, and then like all the KPIs went through the roof. But after like a month, my like head of operations came to me and said, 40% less people are verifying on the platform. Something is happening. And we looked at the screen and we forgot to add the verify button. We just, professional blindness, it wasn't there. And if there was no test and sort of like data-driven company in the culture, we would not notice. And we would notice when we would get like shitload of bad feedback for having a lot of like scammers and spammers on the platform. This way, we noticed within the month, the feature was out maybe like 60%, reverted, fixed it, no damage done. And that's why it's also important, because sometimes I just forget things that are obvious because they're so deep in the topic, right? So that's why the data doesn't lie. Everything needs to be data driven.
Completely agree, 100%. Now, when we talk about testing new features and just thinking about the product roadmap, what do you think will be the features on the market that will be dominating the market in like 1 or 2 years from now? There is AI, obviously. There's all AI hype happening. VR hype happening right now. How does this going to influence dating, and maybe especially LGBTQ dating?
So I recently spoke on a conference like 3 days ago, and I had in the presentation 2 points. So I'm going to use the same two ones because I thought about it a lot. On the part of augmented reality, it really depends on the hardware and on the adoption of the hardware. But if it works, if the bet of Apple works, I mean, Apple usually bets well because they are very late market movers. Then there's going to be a huge revolution in dating. And a lot of players are going to die because they will not be able to make the jump to the new hardware. And now, like, think about it. I think you're in a relationship for a few years, but you definitely remember dating. And I do as well, though I'm in a relationship right now. And there's this huge gap between that is best shown when you met someone, the conversation is rather fine, so you go out for coffee, and then you meet a person, and in a lot of cases, it just doesn't fit. Like in a lot of cases, I know within 5 seconds of seeing the person that, okay, this is not going to work. And now maybe he's too tall, maybe he's too short, maybe the body language doesn't fit somehow, the vibe is not there. Sometimes it's something very ephemeral. But it turns out that the 2D picture, it's a really shitty way how to identify if you have chemistry with someone. And that costs you a lot of bad dates. You have to pay for a lot of dinners, and right? And it's annoying because it's bad to be like refused because the vibe is just not there. It's not like it's happening to me, but I heard from a friend. And it's also bad to like continue to refuse people because, oh, I thought you are taller, or oh, your body language is a bit off, and and this poses a very significant user need. Nobody wants to have bad dates. But if you have like a 3D scan of 1 minute of the person moving, talking, and you see how they look like in the space, that to a certain extent, or to a huge extent actually, closes this gap, right? And I think, there is the technology, there is the user need, and I genuinely think people from Match, like from the group, are already experimenting with the Apple device that was recently released. And I think there's a quite important pivot that will revolutionize the market if it works. And just to like sort of highlight the user need, especially in the LGBTQ sector. So I mentioned that the GBTQ part, so identifying as man, it's very, very visual. And the way how I acquired this experience was that I was doing a lot of user interviews, because sure, I'm part of the gay community, but I live in a certain niche of the gay community, and we want to know all the social aspects of it and whatnot. And there's this really helpful question that I was advised by like head of product in a different company, when at the end of the interview ask, okay, imagine you have a magic wand and you can create any feature possible. Like technology is not limitation. There's no limitation. Just any kind of feature in the app that you can imagine that would bring the most value to you. What would it be? And disturbing amount of people answered, okay, I want a 3D scan of the person that I mesh with the ability to remove their clothes. And this this VR feature, minus the removing the clothes, or maybe even with it, I don't know. It depends on the rules of the App Store. Is really close to this, and it appears that it's like a problem not just within the gay community, but within general community, that the 2D images are just not really good in like translating the vibe and the chemistry, whereas the 3D scans, especially if you add a voice to it, could be significantly better. So I think that's one. And I will tell you about AI, but maybe you want to build on that.
I think that explains what I thought very well. How much, just one follow-up question. How much of the dating do you think will be happening actually in VR and AR? How much of the meetings are gonna actually be personal? Assuming that the revolution will happen and that this is gonna be possible.
So, look, I think the growth, it's different. Like, I have this like other CEO that I really talk to a lot, and our approach to dating is very similar. Like, you have to fill the funnel, and then you go through certain steps. Like for me, it's very streamlined. For him as well, I'm a very data driven person. So it depends on the like step in the funnel. I think the initial one, the initial step, when you like meet the people and like have the initial contact, I think there more and more of the market is going to move into the virtual space. And we see the trend everywhere. Like, people talk to each other less. They have less social. They have less social skills. They spend more time in the virtual environment. So it's very natural that they use the virtual environment to meet each other. So I think the initial step is gonna, like, it's already more than 50% of the relationships. I guarantee you, there is significantly more. Like, it over indexes the number of dates because it's just so much more feasible to get a date through this. The quality might be the problem though. So there, I think the growth is going to continue. Also, maybe the initial contact, like this, like VR persona, when you see the person for the first time through like a 1 minute loop of their moving or something else, I think that might also move like into the virtual space a bit because it's convenient to like screen people online in non-personal way before you actually commit to going to the date. But I don't think that the big part of the like dating is going to move online. Like, I don't think that anytime soon we get to the world where you say, okay, so let's hang out. And the like initial hangout thing is going to be like online virtual chat and not actually going out for a coffee for multiple reasons. First of all, I think like it's very natural for the person, if you're attracted to someone, you want to meet them for various reasons. There are certain activities that are very challenging to do online. And second, if this were the truth that like this mid step could be like moved from like real life to online, then video calls would be already like a huge part of the dating apps, and they're not. Like, streaming is happening a bit, but having this like mid step, like, okay, we met, we are vibing, we get a video call, and then we go for coffee, it's not really a big trend. So therefore, I don't think it's gonna like the mid step somehow is not happening on the market. So I think it's gonna like bigger part of the screening is gonna happen online, but then the like real life, it's not gonna meet online. I don't think this dystopic reality of everybody lives in Zuckerberg's Meta, it's gonna happen anytime soon.
Makes sense. Very well explained. What about the AI then? So, one thing is that everyone talks about it right now. There are incredible. You mean about AI? The
Yeah, like
whole
you said,
world?
somebody's talking about a whole word. Sorry, I
Ah,
heard payroll, and I was like, who is that? Okay, fine.
no worries, no worries. So everybody's talking about it. Very very futuristic guesses and assumptions involved there. So what do you think this will do to dating?
So look, short term, like, what is the sector living by right now? It's personalization, right? Like, you have this, like, the few years ago, the personalization was happening in the like market leaders. So Instagram famously implemented personalization of your feed that like reshuffles the post that you get and got like 20 to 30% uplift of the user engagement. Spotify did this with recommendation of your podcast, also got 20% increase in engagement, right? And it translates to retention, which translates to revenue increase and like whatever else. So it's super, super powerful. And I think companies are working on this right now. Like we recently deployed attractiveness score, which we did like super simple MVP, well, as simple as it can be given that it's like an AI algorithm, that selects the most attractive people in the base and it front loads them in the swiping queue. So when you open the app, you have very high chance that you will see somebody very hot. On some of the platforms, for instance, on Search Android, the uplift was like 33%, which is crazy. Like I just grew my app by 30%. And that was just MVP, right? So you can optimize this, you can squeeze another 10, 15%. So the personalization is the thing that a lot of the companies are burning through right now. So that's the sort of short-term goal. But if you think about the long-term things, I think AI has a potential to basically get us all out of business. Like if you think about it, ChatGPT can answer any question that you ask it, unless the answer is like after 2021. A Stable Diffusion can do any kind of prompt that you can think of, unless it has, the kryptonite of image generation, so the fingers. But in the dating world, I still have to swipe left and right, irrelevant guys like a caveman, and that's just sort of asking for like revolution, right? So where is my single button solution? Where is the thing that I press the button, it analyzes the whole base and tells me, look, you want a sex? This is the 5 people who you will have awesome sex with. You want a children? These are the 5 people who are keepers and have very good like family qualities. You want a significant relationship? These are the 5 people who you will really vibe with and can spend good chunk of your life having great experiences with. And the crazy thing is that, and this is interesting because maybe with an exception, of Tinder and Badoo and the really big players, the market players don't have the data to build this. Maybe they can like buy it somewhere, but they don't own it. Because in order to build the prediction machine that can predict if somebody will like hit it off as a father of your children, hit it off as husband, hit it off as whatever else, requires historical data of this, and dating applications don't have it, right? Because the second when you get the relationship, we lose the track and we don't know what's happening really. But Meta has this, for instance, right? And probably like Google can probably somehow index this information from your search queries, blah, blah, blah. So the real big players have this, but let's talk. Oh, my Siri decided to speak to me, I'm sorry. So Mark has this data, and I will at the end explain why he's not doing it. But if you think about it, the technology is there. Multi-layer neural network, it's a basic prediction. He has the knowledge about you, like Meta knows you better than your best friends, than your family. They can predict your actions better. They can predict your behavior better. And most importantly, which is the part that most of the players are missing, they have the knowledge of who married who had kids with who divorced who dated who, how long did it work? And from that, it's feasible to estimate which relationships were like happy ones or not, right? You can also look at the sentiment of the post that you had, whatever. So take the huge, humongous historical data, let it crunch a big neural network for a significant amount of time, and then charge me 500 euros, use my vector of information from Facebook, which I assume has hundreds of thousands of nodes, feed it to a neural network, and give me my most probable, I will hit it off as a husband with from Czech Republic, from Germany, from Europe, from US, from the world, and give me access to them. And the most charming thing is you don't need to be perfect at this. You just need to be better in predicting who you're going to hit it off with, significantly better than the status quo. And in status quo, humans are doing the prediction. You do it yourself, and you're awful at it. It's awful. Like you are biased, you are horny. You have these weird images about the world, like seeing it through outdated social ideas such as like the European love. So you just need something that will be slightly, or not slightly, that will be like significantly better than humans, but that should not be that difficult to achieve. And the second this happens, the second Mark or somebody else releases this market, this thing to the market, the whole advocacy of humans going through the profiles, going on dates, and having all these like scrap and unsuccessful experiences with other people will to a certain extent diminished, and that will revolutionize the market completely. What do you think? Is it to be to this topic? I'm getting like Black Mirror vibes from this.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to say, the Black Mirror vibe. Uh, I was about to challenge. It seems to me unimaginable that it can actually find you D1, but I agree that it can probably find you, and tech will be able to find you in a very short amount of time, like a better choice than you would have done for sure from like a larger database of people. Um,
But
yeah,
the D1, it's a hoax. I mean, it's just like from my dating experiences, it's like, yes, you need to vibe on a certain level and you need to have a certain chemistry, which is difficult to predict when you're in a neural network. You don't have these things. But I mean, you can integrate DNA results. I mean, there is available for like significant amount of people already. Um, but you need to find somebody who you have common values with, common goals in life. That's very feasible through Facebook and through, they also have like, right? They also have the data from Instagram. These two, they should be really simple. And you need to find two people that are in the like that are open to this, right? So if right now I'm, for instance, in a like stage of life when in the next 5 6 8 years I'm going to be looking for a husband and a father of my children, and if I get someone who is like hot for me, which you can judge from my like past relationships, whatever, somebody who has common interests and has common values, which is very feasible to find from activity on social media, and somebody who has like the same goal in life that I do. So we are in the same period of life and we are like willing to build the same things, such as like start a family. You are already miles better than swiping left and right or scrolling through the grid, right?
that's I think that's correct, and that I think very. I mean, it's the future, but already now, it seems to me that the biggest positive about dating apps is the ability to your given ability by the product to like better qualify people. You know, to see people that really actually want to date, that are of your preference, that that you can learn a lot more information beforehand about. And as well, you know, ideally already now you have recommendation systems that learn from your past choices. So it's just a step further.
Yeah, I actually can't comment on this because as a part of the LGBTQ community, I never experienced the like non-online dating. Like I'm young enough to actually be exclusively in the online space. I don't know how it is to date, quote unquote, normally, or how, the early millennials dated, the ancient times without Tinder. I have no clue how that works. So it's difficult me for to sort of like judge and associate with this. But you said a thing that was interesting, and that is that you have a certain advantages of using dating apps, and I mean there are also certain disadvantages to this, right? Because if you think about it, um, and I think that's kind of like connecting the dots of the discussion that there's a huge power on the society and a huge impact that the big players like Tinder, Bumble, Grindr have. Um, and then the question is the interest of the company aligned with the interest of the players, of the users? And so the short answer is no, because when you find your significant other on Tinder, good for you, that's your goal as a user, but bad for the board of Tinder because you leave them. You stop paying the subscription, right? And now, like, I'm not spinning conspirational theories. I'm not saying that the CEO of Tinder with the conclave of the C-level is like sitting somewhere in the basement of some like pizza restaurant and trying to keep you away from your like princess on the white horse. But what they do, and again, connecting other dot, they run A/B tests, and Tinder is really good in data driven, so they run maybe hundreds of A/B tests in parallel. Like my Tinder, your Tinder would be very different, apart from the fact that mine will be full of men and you're probably full of women. But the A/B tests are not optimizing for positive churn. They are not optimizing to get you out of the platform. They need to meet revenue goals because they're a publicly traded company. They're optimizing for growth of revenue. They're optimizing for retention. They're optimizing for these key business KPIs. And they are very often contradictory to you finding your significant other. And this is problematic because we are moving majority of relationships or the beginnings of the relationship into online space, giving it to hands of people who are unregulated, have huge power, and their interests are not aligned with yours. And like there's a lot of talk about how the social network, like we fucked up the social network revolution and we like left it unregulated. It's not just the social network revolution. The dating is also heavily unregulated. And for instance, this misalignment, if we move 80-70% of the space of the like dating activities into the space, and we don't align the interest of the users and the companies in terms of actually finding the partners, we might have a huge problem on our hands down the line. There are players that managed. For instance, we are managing. Badu is really trying to manage. Grindr managed incredibly because you need hookup every night, so they are very aligned, right? You get what you want, they get your money. But for instance, Tinder or some other players like Tinder, I feel like there is a fundamental misalignment, and for me, intuitively, it is dangerous. What do you think about it?
That's a very interesting thought, and I think you're right. And I would just maybe add to that that not only that it is in the best interest of the CEO of Tinder to make Tinder sticky and to make Tinder addictive, so that you come back, and then it has a very high chance of breaking your relationship. But also the very fact of online dating and your ability to very easily find users, very easily go on a date, something that is so different from how the dating worked before, at least for straight people. Is dangerous for long-term relationships, seems to be. So what do you think there is a solution to this problem? Like, it seems like, as you said, inherently the apps need to be sticky and need you to make you date more and more and date over time for them to be able to grow, which their shareholders want. Oh,
yeah, I mean, definitely. So one note, and then I can like show you how other players are solving that and how, for instance, Cosmic is solving this. But so first of all, like the big players right now, they don't have to solve it. Like this issue is non-transparent to user. The user doesn't know that the platform is being optimized for the retention and not necessarily for finding the significant other. I mean, there is this, I think Hinge or whatever other player had this like marketing slogan of a dating app designed for you to uninstall it. I was like, sure, that's exactly what's happening. So it's a good marketing move, but in reality, no, it's the dating app that is, as any other app, I'm sorry, is designed to get money from you. It's a for-profit business. And if the for-profit means that like they keep you on the application, which also requires you not to meet your significant other, get monogamous, and delete the app, the A/B test will eventually pivot the platform there, right? But so first of all, I don't think there is motivation for the big players to do it because there is no pressure. The users, it's not transparent for them, so they don't like create the pressure. And the state, the regulator, is so far behind that they are not doing shit about this, right? Despite the efficiency of dating does have huge societal consequences. We had the example with like growth of STDs or fall of STDs or natality, etc. And the solutions. So I was recently quite charmed with what Bumble is doing. So they have the biggest part of their business is still dating, but they have these different modes of the application that you can select. One of them is like friends, so you can swipe to find general acquaintances. And the one that I was using was networking. So you can swipe for like business people, and like there are people who are looking for a job, there are people who are just looking for like growing their network, whatever else. And this is something that doesn't have positive churn, right? Like you continuously are looking for friends, and you continuously are looking for sort of network, growing network, business opportunities, etc. So you can pivot your tool into something that, sure, you don't use the dating because you already have a wife, but you can still use it to find friends, whatever else. This is to a certain extent what we are doing as well on Zoe, right? Like the app is heavily optimized not just for you to find a girlfriend, but it's heavily optimized for you to find network and maintain network. So you can shift a bit your focus. Or for instance, I mean, the example of Grindr. You are not providing monogamous relationships, you are providing hookups, which you need one or two every day, if you're like me. And therefore, like their interest is to get you a hookup, your interest is to get a hookup, and you are fully aligned. So there are like products that are managing somehow, but I would still say that overwhelming part of the business, of the core business, has this paradoxical positive churn, misalignment of interests between the company and the user. Let's see how it develops, but I'm a bit afraid that unless the free market solves it, so there is going to be a player who will eventually really consume the positive churn and create a tool that you will really use for a month or two and then uninstall, and they will just consume the problem of having crazy churn for the competitive advantage to be by far the best to match you with your future wife. We will just like live in an environment where the apps will optimize for retention and not necessarily to find you the significant other.
That was a very thorough analysis, and exactly as you said, right? Unless there is a player coming that can provide incredible amount of value and therefore charge for it by giving you a very, very optimized long-term partner, and you can charge a lot of money for it, and therefore it can be a profitable business as well, and it can be a growing business. Or it seems like the apps need to pivot to something other than dating, uh, which is, a completely different market. Let's say, although I understand how you have a large database of users that you can already work with for the.
Yeah, but I think it's more likely that the like technologies will revolutionize the market so much that the current way of operating will be redundant. So for instance, if, by the way, there is such a thing as Facebook dating, they have this product, and I promised you, and I forgot about it, that I will explain why Facebook is not moving more heavily into this space. The market that they operate on, so the battle for the social media space, which is raging right now, right? Like they are fighting with Twitter using the threads, and it's called threads, right? And they are fighting for market share with TikTok versus Instagram, etc. This market is, I think, 100 times bigger than dating market, which is already very crowded and fragmented and would require significant investment to get there. So I think they are just like having a bigger fish to fry, but eventually the technology will become so much cheaper, and they will just get an opportunity it might be the case that it will be very feasible for them to reinvest back into the dating space and transform the entire market, right? And they are kind of like, even with like the large language models and with their like occupation with AI, like they recently created Llama, crowdsourced it. There are a significant player in the AI wars. So they will have the capability, they will have the data, the computational power is there, like for the money that they have, it's basically free. So I think eventually they will jump the gun and completely, like it's called architectural innovation. They will change the technology that is used to find dating, and they will also change the market, the business model. And the business model might be not necessarily subscription, but give me $100 and you get 10 users that are like super likely to be aligned with your values, right? Because the model is just so much better that it can just like select the people based on your criteria. We give you access to them. As an example, right? Like I have no clue what like business model it will be, but it might differ significantly from the thing that we have on the market right now.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that, we've been talking for almost an hour now, so I'll leave it at that. Hopefully this was I pretty much really enjoyed the discussion. Hopefully it really sparked a lot of interest about online dating and also explained a lot about online dating. So thanks very much for joining us today, and see you soon.
My pleasure.
And that's it for today's episode of the Startup Huddle. Thank you very much for listening, and make sure to catch all episodes on thestartuphuddle.com and follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter for more insights and updates on the world of startups. Thanks again for tuning in.